Hey guys, while I work on some bigger projects in the background, I wanted to make something new to tie you over, so I'm back with a brand new top 10. This one's one I wanted to talk about for quite a while, because without the people that I'm going to mention, Lara's adventures would be way less interesting. So here's the best of the best, my favourite supporting characters of Tomb Raider. In at number 10 is Winston, and I mean I had to include him really. He's a staple of the series, and he's remarkably important in some ways. Think about it, throughout the classics he's there, bumbling around at snail pace, getting in Lara's way, and he's a vestige of Lara's upper class status, whether she likes it or not. I mean, if she really wanted help, then surely she would have hired maybe someone a bit more agile and able to, I don't know, climb up ladders and sweep things off tall shelves. I mean, can you imagine Winston doing that? So he's there because of sentimentality, an old close friend of Lara's, maybe of Lara's family, which is funny when you think about it because every time we've met him, we've been able to abuse him horribly, whether we've gone outside and shot him repeatedly or brought him inside and locked him in the freezer, where some people say he still is to this day, waiting to be defrosted. At number 9, I wanted to include Dr. Dominguez, who's a really interesting character from Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Right at the start of the game, we find out he's not just the sub-manager of a branch of Trinity, he's actually the head bitch in charge of the entire secret military organisation. He's a complex guy. He's the reason that Lara doesn't have a dad, but the game also presents him as being nice to people and to children, which is nice, and scornful of Lara's actions, and rightly so. And also because he's effectively the leader of an ancient secret city, he just wants to use supernatural powers to protect his people, which no one can really blame him for. He grew up sheltered from the outside world, and then he lived in the outside world, and he saw the ravages that modern people do to the world, and he wanted to protect everyone from that, which is fair enough. And at one point even Lara seems to forgive him pretty damn quickly for ruining her family and her childhood. Strange guy, mixed messages, but I like him.
He was going to lead the public to buy Titi. Everything I love, everything I fought for. My world would have been destroyed.
And what about my world?
At number 8, you're getting a twofer, because I couldn't separate the dream team and the favourite couple of Natalie technologies, could I? From Larson's dumbass ways from Tomb Raider 1 and Chronicles, and apparently the immortal Pierre, I just love the dynamic between the two of them. Rather like George and Lenny, Pierre holds what appears to be great care, but also a tired demeanour when it comes to his partner, always looking out for him and buying him milkshakes.
You were kicked in the head by a horse, so the brain doesn't work correctly?
How'd you know about that?
Never mind.
I don't expect we'll ever see them again in the main series, but I'd like to see them in some spin-offs from time to time.
We ain't gonna make that gap, boss.
We'll make it.
Ain't gonna.
We'll make it.
What did I tell you?
Mon Dieu!
Lara's supernatural evil twin, Papa 911, and pet project of an Atlantean alien queen is certainly one of my favourite characters in Tomb Raider history. I mean, look at her. Glowing eyes, leather fetish, blood red braid. Flawlessly confident, super fast, super strong, arson enthusiast and slayer of the annoying one. To use a phrase that I'm about 20 years too old to use, how could I not stan? And don't get me started on that smile, which I haven't actually seen in game because Crystal still haven't brought that game out for anyone other than Xbox 360 owners. Lara Croft has had a number of friends throughout the years, from Jean-Yves in the classics, to Legends Zip and Alistair, to reboots Sam, but this Kiwi is my favourite one of all. From his days being a cook on the Endurance,
if I'm going to die in this place, I'm not going to do it hungry.
To his fierce loyalty throughout Rise and Shadow, he's an adventurer with a heart of gold. Earl Balon really brought him to life and gave his backstory such a tender spirit.
I like this world. It's not perfect. But everything I love now is in it.
He's had a number of action moments throughout the trilogy, and I think my favourite has to be his stupid brave idiot moment in Shadow when he steals the silver box right out of Dominguez's hands and just legs it. A legend.
Lara, go!
On to number 5. If you'd have asked me 10 years ago if I'd have included Amanda in a list of my top favourite characters, I would have laughed at you. I used to think she was so overrated. People would always be saying, oh, but she's such a good villain. She's a good antagonist at best.
Amanda?
Damn it, Laura, I'm busy.
But she's just so unexplored. I couldn't have told you a thing about her past other than her being an ex-colleague archaeologist who found a naughty stone and turned a bit goth and wanted to go to Avalon for reasons. But over the last few years, I've really warmed up much more to Legend than I ever had in the past, and read up more about its characters. And from her official biography, Amanda sounded so much more interesting, and I wish those games had explored her character much more. I mean, listen. She studied every religious and mystical system in the world, past and present, and while at university, she was already something of an expert on theology and mysticism. She had a pet theory that fragments of a single, long-forgotten mystical belief system exist within the rites and rituals of shamanism, witchcraft, and many religions. Her dream was to rediscover the supreme knowledge of the past and teach it to people so they could gain spiritual enlightenment. So yeah, personally I think Amanda's strength lies in her awesome potential, and she had such an interesting story beyond what we saw in the games, but she was entertaining enough in them.
The good news is we saved the world. The bad news is now we're gonna die here. Huh, just like your mother.
The mysterious stranger watching from afar, the cool dude in the shadows stalking Lara across Europe. He was created in the hope that he would spin off into his own series. There's a lot going on with this guy. He's a last living descendant of a secret society dating back to the Knights Templar, note the acronym. Curtis comes across as cocky and arrogant before he cooperates with Lara, and we see a much better side to him. He's on a quest of his own, which revolves around revenge over the death of his family at the hands of a bloodthirsty, monstrous villain. And while we only got a glimpse of his abilities in Angel of Darkness, his telekinetic powers were a sight to behold. Now, as rumours of his death were greatly exaggerated, I actually hope we see him again in the future, especially in light of Crystal's attempt to unify the timelines. And bring it on, I say, because I want to see that spin-off. Alien, Atlantean queen, and CEO of an advanced tech company. How does she have time to do it all? Because Natalie kicks ass. She always has and always will. From her snarling demeanour in Tomb Raider 1 and her maniacal nature in Anniversary and Underworld, she's one of the best villains Tomb Raider has ever had. Whether as Tomb Raider's original mad scientist, obsessed with genetic engineering, growing clones in a pulsing pyramid, or enacting a ritual to tear the world apart at its seams, her iconic status rivals that of Lara's itself within the franchise. And yes, I'd love to see her again in all her alien glory, whether in spin-offs or in the main series.
You can't bump off me and my brood so easy, Lara.
Now, if Natalie was the sci-fi villain, then Eckhart, the Black Alchemist, is the horror villain. And his story is damn awesome. Having made a pact for immortality in exchange, he would help rebreed the Nephilim race, he waged war against the Lux Veritatis secret society, and he developed a method of harvesting elements from humans to use in his gruesome experiments. He was bound in supernatural stasis beneath a castle for 500 years, escaped during World War II, and since then he's ruled a secret cabal with the intent on finishing his great work, at the gory expense of anyone who crossed his path. I love him. He's terrifying, he's sadistic, he's gruff, and he emanates evil. May we see many more like him in Lara's future.
But over the decades, I've killed more mortals like you than I can remember.
And stole their body parts, like a cheap grave robber.
So my all-time favourite non-Lara character, and the one who's arguably had the biggest direct influence on Lara's life, Werner von Kroy. He took Lara on her first proper adventure to Cambodia, where she found her iconic bottomless backpack, on a trip that set up a lifetime of storytelling. So on this trip her skills were honed, but whether she knew it or not, Werner's influence on her shaped her future. And one of his lines has always stuck with me.
Although you have not yet learned the root of all adventuring, the craving to win at whatever cost.
Now it's a line that I think it describes his selfishness so well, as we see moments later when he steals the iris after ignoring the warnings, but it also comes to describe Lara pretty damn well in her own future when she becomes this competitive, single-minded character who only plays for sport. Their on-off friendship seems to be based around this rivalry of one-upping each other, which leads to a life-changing event when Lara falls beneath the Great Pyramid and von Kroy has to leave her.
Take my hand. I can pull you to safety.
Good to see you again, Werner.
I couldn't leave you!
So the dynamic of their relationship really fascinates me, as it's gone from mentor and student to friend to rival to friend. I mean, Lara was still angry with him at the start of Angel of Darkness, but she cared enough for him to actually go and visit him. And she was genuinely saddened by his death. I love him because of his whole narrative story. It intrigues me, but it also because his inclusion brings out a range of different emotions, traits and performances in Lara, ultimately making her an even more kick-ass character.
Too many people have died for me to trust you, including a good friend, von Kroy.
He was an unfortunate victim of history, Lara. Eckhart was stupid to have killed him.
Now, von Kroy and Roth seem to be at the heart of the timeline unification debate, because of their status as Lara's mentors, but if Crystal can do it successfully, and keep them both, then I'd really love to see some more flashbacks between him and Lara one day. And that's my list. Lara's the best, no question, but if you take her out of the equation, we're still left with an absolutely stellar cast. Feel free to tell me your list in the comments, but I would also like to know who would you like to see return. Till next time.